Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's presentation, Revealing Nature's Magic in Iceland, is brought to you by NatHab Expedition Leader Heather Chrystie and special guest Boga Kristinsdotti. Heather holds a degree in physical geography and has specialized in guiding nature tours in grizzly bear country, becoming an expert on these majestic creatures through extensive study and field experience. She divides her guiding time primarily between the Canadian Rockies and Churchill for NatHab's polar bear tours, and has recently expanded to include Iceland in her repertoire. As a certified hiking guide and a qualified interpretive guide, Heather has embraced adventure opportunities worldwide, including skiing expeditions in Kashmir, the Republic of Georgia, and Svalbard. Thank you both for being here today. Boga, Heather, the show is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, for that introduction. Hello, everybody. I'm Heather, and Robert's introduction there actually reminded me that I should probably update my bio because I've been working in Iceland for 7 years now. And isn't it amazing how time flies like that? And I am here today with my very good friend and wonderful colleague, Boga, who's one of our local guides in Iceland. And I'm very happy that she's chosen to join in today to share her unique perspective of Iceland, her home country. And she will be introducing herself a little bit later on as well. And so yeah, that's the two of us, Iceland enthusiasts right here, and Icelandic born and bred person in Boga. And we would love to talk to you today about Iceland and the incredible country that it is. And there is a purpose to this webinar, not only to introduce you to many of the things that is possible to see in Iceland, to experience in the wonderful nature that they have there, explore what makes Iceland an incredible destination to go to, but also to talk about the new itinerary that we have running there. You might be familiar that we have a round Iceland itinerary. That's the one that Boga and myself have been guiding up until this point, but we're introducing a new itinerary to the west of Iceland, and we want to talk to you about what makes that region special and what it is possible to see traveling specifically to the west of Iceland. But to begin us off here, to start to talk about Iceland as a country itself and explore what makes it a great place to visit. Of course, it's this little island, relatively speaking, in the middle of the North Atlantic, located right on top of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and a volcanic hotspot, meaning that geology really defines the country of Iceland. It is incredibly young. It's got a very unique combination of factors, and so geology is something which I am very happy to say we love to talk about in Iceland. I'm coming from a physical geography background, and that's something that really makes me happy every time I go to Iceland itself. And yeah, so the country itself is geologically very young. Here we can see on the screen a map showing where the Mid-Atlantic Ridge runs through the middle of the country, and how that's the newest part of Iceland that you're looking at there, the grey area with the orange blobs in it. That's the newest part of Iceland, where we still almost practically a daily basis have new rocks forming, volcanoes erupting. You've probably heard about that in the news. And it's a very ongoing and dynamic situation in Iceland's geology, which I think makes it a really important part of any visit to Iceland, is to look at that geology. Other things that make Iceland really special, of course, the clue is in the name. There's a reason that it's called Iceland, but there's a lot of glacial ice to explore in the country as well. About 10% of the country today is covered in ice, and you can see on the map the white areas are the major ice caps on the country of Iceland itself. And when you put those two factors together, the geology and the ice, you wind the clock back 10,000 years, you would see the whole of Iceland covered in ice. And that, of course, means that the ecology that we have in Iceland is only about 10,000 years old, right? So last glacial maximum started to retreat, the ice started to disappear from the country of Iceland, and that's when the soil, the plants and the animals that we see in Iceland today started to colonize that landmass. So the ecology is extremely young, on a young geology, and makes it a very dynamic and wonderful place to visit. When you put all of that together, of course, here's a fun little map for you. You can see there's a great diversity of things to do, things to see. We've got this incredibly rich human cultural history as well, dating back to the Viking era. And so there's a lot going on in this rather small, young country. And I can imagine there'd be somewhat overwhelming, actually, to look at Iceland and try to work out what to do when you get there. Speaking from my personal experience, I've been going to Iceland for at least 2 or 3 months of the year, every year for 7 years. And I have definitely not run out of things to do yet. And Boga lives there. I don't think she's run out yet. But assuming that you personally are not moving to Iceland, I kind of wanted to do a little quick run through some of the things that you might expect to see when you do get to visit Iceland, or return to Iceland if you've been already. And so we did a little quick run through of everything that Iceland has on offer that you might see when you start to look at going to Iceland. So of course we have these beautiful dramatic valleys and canyons full of moss. The moss is supported by the climate in Iceland. Don't know if you've heard, but it sometimes rains there. However, in between the rain, it's absolutely gorgeous. And even when it is raining, the mosses light up with these green emerald tones. And I actually feel very disappointed if we have a trip to Iceland and it doesn't rain, because you miss out on those beautiful greens. But these beautiful dramatic valleys and canyons full of moss are a very classic Icelandic scene. Of course, we have the glaciers and the ice that still remains today, beautiful blue colors. It's definitely not called Iceland for nothing. So any visit to Iceland, I think, should include a visit to some kind of ice, and that's certainly a very, very good possibility on every trip that you take there. You might be thinking also about the coastline environment, which is a great place for your mind to go to, especially on our wildlife-focused trips, because we have these incredible fjord ecosystems in the east and the west of the country of Iceland. A fjord is a glacial valley that's partially submerged by the ocean. It creates this very beautiful, kind of unrivaled scenery of these steep-sided valleys dropping straight down into calm waters normally. And it's an ecosystem unto itself, these flooded glacial valleys. And that ecosystem can provide great feeding habitat for creatures like humpback whales. There's also nesting colonies for a lot of our bird life, and that ties us nicely into the next thing you might expect to see in Iceland. It's puffins, of course, and they are extremely charismatic. They are seasonal. We'll talk about that in due course here, but you would be very fair to be within your expectations of Iceland to see these beautiful animals, and oftentimes their nesting habitat is alongside some of those beautiful fjords that we saw in the last picture there. So coastline is really a hotspot of wildlife activity in Iceland. There's actually only one native land mammal to the country. It's the Arctic fox. It migrated there over the sea ice in the last glacial maximum. And even the coastline is even a good place to look out for them as well, because they often are foraging amongst the bird colonies up and down the coastline in the intertidal zone and stuff like that. You might be expecting when you go to Iceland to see whales, the polar waters, not just within the fjords, but around the country itself as well. The polar waters are an explosion of life and an explosion of food throughout the summer months, which draws in animals like humpback whales, minkies, fin whales, blue whales, and others that ply Iceland's coastline. And it's really amazing, of course, to catch a glimpse of those as we go through the course of any trip. that we take there. And then, of course, you would expect to see some geology when you're in Iceland. As I said, is it nowhere else in the world? It's such a combination of factors to make the geology quite exciting. Like this ropey lava in the picture here. It's one of the fresh lava flows in the south of the country. You know, there's been eruptions happening in a very confined locality in the south of Iceland in recent years, and this is one of the recent lava flows from those eruptions. So yeah, with the hotspot, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, it means that geology is very much a part of daily life. And in fact, if you go to the Icelandic weather forecasting website and you check the weather for the country, right alongside the weather you can check the seismic forecast, you can see if there's any volcanoes happening, and it's reported really in the same breath as the weather. So very much a dynamic thing to check out when you are in Iceland. Alongside those basaltic lava flows, like in the picture here, you may also have seen pictures of these beautiful, colorful hills, a little bit less common. You don't find them around every corner in Iceland, but in particular areas in the country, the eruptions were higher in silica, making a rhyolitic type of lava, and that means that we can see a lot more color and diversity of color in the landscape itself. And so these colorful hills, as a result of these silica-rich eruptions, give rise to really interesting landscapes, kind of like being in another world. I don't know anywhere else that you can see so much color in a landscape without many plants. It's all to do with the rocks underneath. Personally, I think that should be on a must-see list in Iceland, is to go to some of these colorful rhyolitic zones. And then, of course, just to finish off this list here, you might be looking at waterfalls, wildflowers, and a kind of diversity of nature that exists around the country of Iceland. You should come over to Iceland actually and try to help us count how many waterfalls there are in the country, because there's a lot, and every single one of them is beautiful. My favorite one changes every single summer. So it's quite a list of very wonderful natural things to see in Iceland, and Boga is going to talk a little bit about the human connection and the cultural side of things as well. But when you look at itineraries to Iceland, what you'll often find is that in order to see these sites that we just kind of ran through there, a lot of the itineraries will take you to the south coasts, and indeed it's an incredibly beautiful area. The problem with the south coast is it's a little bit discovered. And we do tend to find quite a lot of other people there. Like even the established itinerary in Iceland, the circumnavigation that we do on our existing trip, we don't spend a huge amount of time hanging around on the south coast, just because it is so popular. And so we wanted to showcase all of that beauty of Iceland in a slightly different, more imaginative way. And that's why we decided to take you over to the west of Iceland, Iceland's Wild West over here. And this is a totally different region. If you've traveled on our existing Iceland itinerary already, you can still do this one, because we're not repeating anything except our start and finish point in Reykjavik. And so why are we going here, and what can we show you in this region? That's a great question. We're going to dive right into that. So in West Iceland, it is a shorter trip than our existing offerings allow in Iceland. We don't have to go all the way around the country, so it cuts down on our driving time, and it allows us to visit some places which are considered to be less touristed, especially when it comes to multi-day tours that take you to multiple spots. And it gives us quite a lot of flexibility, because we will zero in on two main areas with an overnight in between as we go on a little Icelandic road trip, which means that we can get quite a lot more immersion into the places that we go, and that's quite exciting. It means yeah, I feel there's a lot to offer from an itinerary that offers some immersion. And so this is what it looks like right here. And so you can see we start and finish in the Reykjavik-Keflavik area. Keflavik is the international airport. Reykjavik is the kind of downtown capital area. And we're going to take you up to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, which we'll introduce you to properly in a moment here. And we're going to spend 3 nights in that one location in Snæfellsnes. Then we go on our Icelandic road trip over through Húsafell and spend a night there and finish off in the Central Highlands at a really exciting location that has not been a possibility for very many years. So we'll introduce you to that as well. We spend 2 nights out in those Central Highlands. So we really get to dive deep and explore those areas. But at the same time, we don't miss out on any of the wonders of Iceland because of the diversity and richness of the regions that are showcased on this itinerary. So if you want to see everything that Iceland has to offer without the crowds and with a bit less time investment, then this is maybe something that you want to look at. We're going to take you now to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to explore what it is we can do there. And to start us off with that, I'm going to pass you over to Boga.
Yeah, hi, my name is Boga Kristinsdotti, and I'm born and raised up in Iceland, and I'm native person, and I have lived most my life here in Iceland, except several years in Norway when I was working for airline Icelandair. But yeah, I have been in tourism for a long time and working very close in tourism for a long time. But I did actually graduated as a tour guide 2012 and jumped into guiding 2014 and have been guiding since. I've been several years for natural habitats and doing the tour like Heather. Thank you, Heather, for all your introduction for Iceland and about the tour. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, the Breiðafjörður Bay, where I'm from. I'm born and raised pretty close to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. And it's very rich in nature over there, and it's a beautiful surrounding around the peninsula. It's a national park on the tip of the peninsula that is actually quite interesting, both including the glacier itself and the area where we are in. And sometimes it's called the 7 Wonders of Iceland, and about the book of Jules Verne's about into the center of the glacier. And also it inspired many more, like for instance our Nobel Prize winner in literature, Halldór Kiljan Laxness, beneath the glacier. It inspired people, yoga people, in spiritual people come there and find some energy from the glacier and come often there to stay for a week or some days. So it's like sometimes called the 7 Wonders of Iceland. It's full of energy. And also it's the nature itself, it's like the coastline. It's very rich of bird life, for instance, oyster catcher, all the seabirds. Like this photo, for instance, is taken on the way where we will hike or where you hike if you come to Iceland. And hopefully I see you there. But it's like the seagulls, it's kittiwake, of course the fulmars, the northern fulmar, and many more. And they nest in the cliffs, as you can see on this photo, just to give you a little idea. And of course the puffin, like Heather did mention earlier, that they are more out in the islands. We have about 3,000 islands in the Breiðafjörður Bay. And through the centuries, through the time, it has been very rich, like fishing central to locals at the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. And the old fishing stations, like it's called Verbúðir. For instance, this photo gives you one of the deep roots of the fishermen. They had to lift up how strong they are. It was like a strong man's culture. So lifting up the stones, are they able to work on this on that boat in the old former days? So this is one of the sites we will visit, and so this is a great opportunity to prove your strength. But about the peninsula itself, it's very rich of, we can say, the flora all around. They have to be, it's Arctic sensitive plants as well, but it's like, what can I say? They have to tolerate the salt, you know, around the peninsula. And this is the Church Mountain, for instance. I took this photo for just a few days ago, just to it inspires. The Snæfellsnes Peninsula have inspired people through the centuries. You can just see it on this photo. It's like the sea life, the rich, like Heather mentioned earlier, how rich it is of marine mammals, about the mammals. For instance, the Arctic fox, that is, what can I say, the native animal, the only native animal in Iceland, and of course the sea life. Breiðafjörður Bay, where I'm from, and the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, from the north side of the peninsula, were through the centuries called, what can I say, food chest of Iceland, because we had always access to food over there. For instance, in the south coast, all these volcanoes going on, etc., etc. But here we had always access to food, the eggs, birds, and everything through the time. Seaweed, dulse, everything we could actually just have. So very rich of culture. It's about our manuscripts from around 1100. We will pass by home of Snorri Sturluson on the way to the west, etc. And that he lived over there. I can trace my family to, 23 generations back to him, for instance. So it's give you, it's a very, very rich culture. People have lived there from Viking age, and still strong. So we have the national park, and also about they were last Saturday, they were actually chosen on the UNESCO Heritage List, biosphere reserve. They have also had this earth check certification. So it's quite interesting what's going on out on the peninsula. Sometimes Snæfellsnes Peninsula is called the Little Iceland, or Iceland in miniature. Just to give people, they have everything over there. They have hot water, cold water, lava fields, all kinds of lava fields, a volcano station, and name it and name it. So it's very rich of everything. And that's just one part of Iceland. So we are very proud to show you that in the first 3 days of the tour. So maybe we have the next slide, please, Heather. Thank you. Next slide, please. Yeah, can you hear me? No, there we go. And this is what I was talking about. This is actually the house in the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. That is most photo taken, but not in this photo. We can see over to one of the places we actually stopped by. It's endless of what can I say, new things to see all around the peninsula. It's always something new in the geology, the nature itself, the lava fields. You are in and out from lava fields. So it's like very rich of everything. So it's give you like, you get inspired for sure. That's something. So maybe the next slide, please. Thank you, Heather. Okay, there we go. And the seals. Heather did mention the marine life, the mammals out there, like the seals, the common gray seal, the harbor seal, etc. And we will visit one of the largest sea colony over there called Ytri Tunga. And also what is interesting about the Snæfellsnes Peninsula is actually you have volcanic black sand all around Iceland, except in the Westfjords and also on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. That's because it's a lot of shells nearby, both to the south side and also to the north side. So it's merging together with the volcanic black sand. And that is so interesting when we visit the Ytri Tunga. That's actually the first stop in the tour that actually are like yellow, like you maybe are more familiar with. Otherwise, they are just volcanic black sands everywhere, all around Iceland. And of course, the beautiful lava rocks, they are just on, like on this photo. So maybe the next slide, please. Yeah, there we go, one of the waterfalls. And this is Bjarnafoss waterfall, and that is one of the waterfalls we visit. Like Heather mentioned a little bit earlier, that we will see several of them, and they are quite unique, all of them. And this is one of them out on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, one of our little stops in the first day. And then we have like, this is like a lava basalt columns out there in the water. We have some seagull over there. And it's like the the walk from Arnarstapa to Hellnar is so interesting, and also amongst other walk and hike we do. Kitty Wake and basalt columns. This is one of the, we can say, formation you will see and experience on the walk. And this is all interesting walk we do around, because this is from one fishing village to another one, that are actually how the fishermen were checking out the weather on the way to the next fishing village to work over there, maybe that during that day, or at Verbúði, the old like, what can I say, fishing station were in the former days. And that is like so it's knit to this old culture, the fishing villages, about the seamen, and how everyone was working in the fish through the centuries. So maybe the next slide, please. Yeah. Oh my goodness, there we have the Icelandic horses, and this is one of the tour we do in the tour that is riding Icelandic horses at the beautiful beaches of Snæfellsnes Peninsula. They are really excellent, like this photo give you an idea of, to ride. I have many friends that actually go there every summer just to ride on the beaches on the Icelandic horse breed. And the Icelandic horse breed is really rich of, have 5-gated and beautiful temperance, and not so big, not a pony though. and that will be an excellent tour out on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to ride the horses. Thank you. Next, yeah. Oh, there we go. Glacier around Snæfellsnesjökull. That's actually our. It's so sad to say, but our glaciers are receding every year, and also Snæfellsnes Glacier. So it's like an ice cap on top of the, out on the tip of the peninsula. So it's like what we do is a snowcat or a buggy, depending on season, when we operate that, and to discover and explore close to the glacier, and maybe on the glacier as well, or part of it. Yeah, and maybe we have the next slide, please. Söderfors waterfall, yeah, and this is a good photo that gives you one of the waterfall sites we will actually hike up to or walk up to, and behind that we have part of the glacier, the Snæfellsnesjökull, and that is on the other side, more to the north side of the glacier. And that is just giving you idea of the glacier itself, more like out on the tip of the peninsula. Yeah, maybe we take the next slide. Yeah. Oh my goodness, there we have my favorite mountain, Church Mountain or Kirkjufell, and also the waterfalls that are a little bit away from the mountain itself. But I think the glacier on the ice age did form this beautiful mountain for us to take some photos. This is the most photographed for, what can I say, mountain in Iceland actually, because of the beauty of it and how it's standing like a very independent and alone on the coastline over there. And then we have a road between the waterfalls that is called Church Waterfalls. So it's it will be interesting to introduce you more to that mountain when you come over. Thank you, Heather. Maybe the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, there we go. What can we see here on the middle of the picture? We have the puffins, and this is like colony of the puffins are actually out in the islands. We have a very dramatic title in the Breiðafjörður Bay where I'm from, and that is sometimes island, sometimes not. That means if it's a high tide or low tide, and etc. Therefore, it's like on some of the islands, like Elliðaey we are visiting, is very rich of like a colony of the puffins, where they lay their nest and are all over and on the way on the boat towards the island. So it's like interesting, and sometimes we call one of the phenomena in Iceland is all the islands in Breiðafjörður Bay, because sometimes you have an island, sometimes not. So people say 3,000, 3,500. It's difficult. No one is on the same regarding that how many they are. So they're uncountable, like 3 other phenomena in Iceland. So puffins, they will be there from middle of May until middle of August, or beginning of May to the end of August into September. It depends on years. So it's like, this tour from Sticky Summer, the beautiful town of Sticky Summer, over to the island, and to see a little bit the seabirds, and of course the beauty of Breiðafjörður Bay, where I'm from. For instance, from my home, it was like out from my window, I had the whole Breiðafjörður Bay, like a little bit, you can see a little bit behind the boat over there. And then I did go to the other side of the farm, and I could see over to the inland of the west. So that was really a privilege to be raised up there, and a lot of fun. And we can say, yeah, this is Stykkishólmur. Stykkishólmur is an interesting town because all the central, we can say the centrum of the town, centrum, is actually facing out to the water. That means through the time, through the century, this is like a long history of trade, and so the people lived in the islands through the time, and they come by boat to do some trade with Stykkishólmur or in the town. And so that's so interesting with that town. It's facing out to the Breiðafjörður Bay. So it's like a charming, charming town indeed, with a beautiful old buildings and amazing access out to the water. So the next slide, please. There we go. We have everything over there. That is the Stykkishólmur. We have the waterfalls, and of course the church, mountain, and yeah. So yeah, and the horses. So everything is over there. So we take the next slide. Thank you.
Maybe Boga, I'll just jump in for one moment there, because it's such an honor to hear you talk about the place that you grew up, and I think it's just such a cool thing to get to go on a trip with someone who's actually from right there. So I just thought it was amazing to hear you talk about that. And I just wanted to point out with this slide that we have up right now, everything that Boga has talked about up until this point is what we do in the first 3 days of the trip. This is full immersion into the Snæfellsnes Peninsula and the Breiðafjörður Bay. And so the pictures that you see represented here, we get to do that with a minimum of driving. And I think that's a really worth pointing out. It's why we like to go to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, is that it is that kind of Iceland in miniature. You get to see so much from one location. So full immersion right there. And next here, I'm going to pass you back to Boga in just a second, but we are going to take you on an Icelandic road trip now, because no trip to Iceland would be complete with just one location, no matter how good it is. And so at this point in our new itinerary, we're going to hop into our beautiful vehicles that will be with us for the duration of the trip, and we're going to head off on a little bit of an Icelandic road trip and show you what we might expect to see along the way. And for that, I will pass you back to Boga.
Thank you. This is the van that we use, and this is your new home for several days, and we will, excellent van. The bus is with a really, really good, have everything to take your luggage. You have your own window seat, and that is really comfortable and nice to be in, and that will take us from Snæfellsnes over to the Húsafell, over to the mountain passes, and over to the highlands. So now we are coming over to Húsafell. Húsafell have all kinds of gem, like Hraunfossar or the lava waterfalls that are bursting down, have been filtering through the lava field for maybe 25, 30, 35 years, and that is the shores is actually from the long glacier, Langjökull, that we will see in the distance from Húsafell, and merged together with the water in the riverbed in a beautiful photo over here in the front. And that is actually water that melted maybe for 5 days ago. So you can imagine how interesting it to see the fresh water pouring from the lava field, edge of the lava. And Barnafoss is one of the waterfall inside, and it's interesting and really, really beautiful sight to see. And also the same lava field, Hallmundarhraun, is hosting or have one of the largest lava tube, that is Viðgemlir, and that is one of the Iceland longest lava tube. So that will be interesting to see the edge of the lava with the pouring water go into the same lava field, pretty close nearby. Húsafell is known for birds forest or Húsafellsskógur. Through the time, it was like overgrazing by sheep through the time, but now it's protected. It's a nature reserve, and so it's growing fast and being a really beautiful wood area of birds, and that is our native tree. And also the hotel we stay at is really interesting, Hotel Húsafell, because that is actually sustainable that way. They have the geothermal water to heat up the hotel, and of course hydropower plant to make electricity. Canyon baths, that's something that will be great to dive into after all this hiking in the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. And it's like a private location for Hotel Húsafell, and it's really amazing paradise. As you can see, it's like what can I say? They did actually build it with less, to make it as natural as it is, and with less impact, and make it like totally spot in the nature between. And they have this amazing access to the hot water because this is so close to the mid-Atlantic ridge, like Heather mentioned earlier, that Iceland is split to a part. It's like the geology of itself. So it's the North America tectonic plate and the Eurasian are providing all this hot water, and especially in Húsafell, it's very rich of geothermal water and a beautiful surrounding with the glaciers nearby. And of course, this rugged mountain pass we drive over, Kaldidalur, really remote gravel road, and over more to the south and the inland of the south, and then high up to the highlands. Yeah. Þingvellir National Park, another national park we visit, and that is on the rift zone, like I mentioned and Heather mentioned, and that's where we established Althing, the old parliament site, 930, and that was outdoor, and it's very, very historical. It's very, very much rich of geology because we walk between the two tectonic plates, absolutely, and it's like give you an idea of how we survived in Iceland in so many ways, and of course more about that when you're on the spot with us. So Þingvellir, really, really historical and interesting. Bang, there we go, up to the highlands and highland base, Kerlingafjöll. This is like, in Iceland, this is Kerlingafjöll means like old woman's mountains. That means like, it's very rich of, the colorful hills, up in the highland, natural hot springs, all this hiking possibilities, this amazing luxury accommodation, and all this together, with steam vents, snowfields, glacier nearby. So it's like a photo, we can say you are in photo paradise if the weather allows, and depends on how it is on the spot. And of course, all the hiking we will do there, as you can see on this little photo over there. So yeah, it's really interesting site to visit. There we go. We have a little bit of the, we can say, the natural hot springs that are just in the front of the new hotel, this luxury accommodation up there that are like a pearl in the highland, and really, really interesting to visit, and give you idea of how you are in the peacefulness up in the highlands, in middle of nowhere, this all violet colors and endless of possibilities of photo taking, and to just enjoy the site itself, to be in the peacefulness over there. Yeah. So maybe the
Yeah.
next slide. Yeah.
Shall I jump in there for a moment as
Oh,
well?
please do that. Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
I wanted to jump in here because the Highlands of Iceland they're an incredible place to visit, and I have to say that there's a lot of tours that miss it. And when I go to Iceland, the Highlands is what it's all about. That's where I spend my days off in between trips. It's the place that I really look forward to getting into. And this hotel at Kerlingarfjord that we get to stay in, this is what I was mentioning earlier. And so this is not an opportunity that's existed for very long. This is a new hotel. It's quite exciting because there are very limited places that we could go to stay in the heart of the Highlands. There's not many of them, and this is the newest and a very exciting one to go to. I think there's two in total, and one on one side of the Highlands and one over here. So it's really amazing to get the opportunity to go there. The Icelandic Highlands are one of the largest wildernesses in Europe. And so when we go there, of course, like Boga was saying, there's this very rich cultural history in Iceland, but crossing over the Highlands was always something that you undertook with great care, and is a dangerous and wild place to be. Of course, staying in comfort at Kerlingarfjord, we get to experience that wilderness without the hazard that they would have had 100 or 200 and so forth years ago, and get to be immersed in this ecosystem that for many people is just a mystery when they come to Iceland. It's the area in the middle. What's it all about? Who knows? We get to unfold it for you on this itinerary. And so yeah, I think that's a very exciting place to go to hike, to see the hot springs, and to really enjoy the ecosystem that we find out there. And so I hope that you could also get excited about a chance to visit the Highlands of Iceland. And Boga, did you want to add anything more about Kerlingarfjord? I know I kind of interrupted you.
Yeah, just one little thing. It's like we are saying the wildlife and the wonders, and nature and the myth. We have a lot of folklore stories about the hidden people, about the trolls, etc. And this is a typical place to stay in to see that all. Yeah. For instance, like the name indicates. Yeah. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thanks, Boga. And so this is the final destination on the Iceland's Wild West tour. And so we've got a little slide here just to showcase just a few of the things that we've talked about through this little presentation for you, really to show you, to mention again that whatever you want from Iceland, whether it's wildlife or to meet the Icelandic horse, the beautiful scenery, glaciers, hot springs, wild highlands, the incredibly rich coastal environment. This is an itinerary which I think brings it to you in quite an imaginative way. We're trying to escape the crowds, waste no time, minimize our driving, and really immerse into these beautiful places. And so I hope that's kind of whetted your appetite for thinking about any trip to Iceland, and giving you a bit more background as well as to what you can find in various parts of the country, specifically the Wild West for this one right here. That's all we had planned to share with you. I know we'd have some time at the end of the presentation here for some questions, so maybe I'll pass it back to Robert to coordinate those questions.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Heather. So before we dive into the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that if you do have questions, please submit them via the question field in your control panel. Just go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You'll see those 3 lines there. Go ahead and click on those, and it'll drop down a bunch of fields. One will say questions, and that's where we will live. All right, let's dive into this. Are there bats in Iceland? And if so, do they populate the lava tubes?
Maybe I answer it. No, it's no bats in Iceland. And they are not in the lava tubes. No, you will not find them here. Thank you.
Gotcha. Does anything use the lava tubes or live in them?
No, no one lives in the lava tube anymore, but we have people in some of, maybe it was more like outlaw thing from the former time. We had one that was really interesting person back to maybe 1930, 40, and Fjallaeyvindur, but he lived in some of the tubers. It's more in the east of Iceland. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No one lives there now.
Gotcha. Thanks. How much of Iceland is actually above the tree line? What is the elevation?
Elevation is like the highest summit in Iceland is actually about 7,000 feet. And then we have many, 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 many large mountains. So it's difficult to say 40% of Iceland is vegetation. Then we have 10% of Iceland is ice, the glaciers, like Heather mentioned. And then we have rest is like the highlands and the interior of Iceland. We live on the coastline of Iceland, definitely like the peninsula, the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. We are like all around the coastline. So I'm not so sure. This is my answer. I don't have it like straight, about the height.
No worries. That's close enough. Thank you, Boga. Heather?
Jump in on that one a little bit as well, Robert, because when we talk about the tree line in Iceland, it is something that's been affected through recent years with human activity, and it's also affected by the location close to the Arctic Circle. So conditions for trees are a bit more challenging up there with a shorter summer and a longer winter than they are further south. So when we think of a mountain, like I live in the Canadian Rockies, we look at the mountain, we can clearly see a tree line. Whereas in Iceland, one of the things that geologists get quite excited about is there's not actually that many trees at the moment to get in the way of your view of the rocks. And that makes it exciting. And when we were talking, Boga was talking about visiting Húsafell and the national park there, and how that's an area of birch forests. These small areas of Iceland's native forest are really precious, and it's really exciting to get to visit them because it's not everywhere, right? It's a wide open landscape that kind of defies our normal definitions of exactly where the tree line is. So yeah, we get to see some trees, but in general it's open. And throughout the course of the trip, Boga mentioned the highest point on the island, but when we are there, our elevation is coastal to begin with, and we'll go up from there, but we're talking things like 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. We're talking huge elevation for the places that we visit through the trip.
Great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. We really appreciate that. So is December or January a good time for me to come out to Iceland to visit, or what is the best time of year?
If I answer that as a native person, you're always welcome. So you're always welcome to Iceland year round. But of course, people that come in December, January, more after different things than we are explaining here today, like Northern Lights, more winter activity, etc. But for this tour, I will say just all the dates, the departure dates we have are excellent, all of them. We can't control the weather, and we can expect all kinds of weather in Iceland. So it's difficult to point out, say, July or August or something. It's of course the summer month. We have very short summer in Iceland. So I will say during the departure we are mentioned for natural habitats tour Wild West next year. Yeah. Heather,
the daylight is something to consider as well, isn't it? And in the winter in Iceland, like Boga was saying, the northern lights can be a great opportunity. It tends to be cold and snowy, at least in places in Iceland in December and January, but you do get lots of hours of darkness, which gives us good chances. Versus the pictures we've been showing you in this one in the summer, we have almost 24 hours of daylight. So quite a different experience at different times of the year. And the time that's best for you will depend on your personal preferences.
What time of year does NatHab run their trips?
If I come into that, that is July, August, and also into September. But this is through July, August. We have the tour to the Wild West.
Gotcha. Thank you. Are puffins something that I can see in Iceland year round?
No. Only from you can only see the puffins from May until beginning of May, middle of May, until the middle of August to the end of August into September. Depends on areas, depends on the year, the season. So it's seasonal bird. So it's only from, I will say, middle of May to end of August. I will say you can see them.
Gotcha. Good to know. Thank you so much. So how much does volcanic activity take place in Iceland? And is that something that would ever postpone my trip, for instance?
If I speak for myself as a native person again, and this is like for this tour, I will say I can't say what can happen. The nature rules, and we live in a harmony with the nature in Iceland, and we live in a harmony with the volcanoes. We have to, but we have had volcano eruption at the Reykjanes Peninsula, where the national airport Keflavik are located. So this is difficult to answer, and we have had like 12 volcano eruptions recently for the last from 21 to this summer. So it's like difficult to say, but I will say minimum risk, but we never know. So and that will be you will get alert and you will know it and to escalate and everything. So Heather, maybe you will also jump into this.
Yeah, sure. I can jump in a little bit just from my experience there. One is that, like I was saying, the weather forecast reports the seismic and volcano activity in the country, which is not just fun to look at, but it's also indicative of how well studied and monitored the activity in Iceland is. And I think obviously Boga is absolutely correct. We can't control the nature and anything could happen. But if you look back over the last few years, right, there have been eruptions repeatedly every summer. Actually, they've been right on time every summer, and those eruptions have been happening very close to the international airports, but have been, a lot of them have been what they call in Iceland a tourist eruption, so you could actually kind of see it happening outside of the window of the plane and land the plane, no problem, continue with the trip, no problem. So that is, you would kind of imagine in our minds coming from other places, like a volcanic eruption must be big and disruptive. It certainly can be, and there are things we can talk about in Iceland with regards to that. But as far as trips go through the summer, with this increase in activity that's been seen in the last few years, it has not impacted the running of our trips through these last few years. So, yeah, hopefully that helps to put your mind at rest on that one.
Thank you for addressing that. I think it does. So if I was coming to Iceland and I wanted to visit one of the famous lagoons, either the Blue Lagoon or the Sky Lagoon, which one would you recommend, and does NatHab visit those?
Yeah, well, I personally, I've been to the Blue Lagoon. I had a nice time there. It was very relaxing, and I could see why it was popular. It's not something that we include on our tours. If you go on the round Iceland itinerary, that's itinerary that goes all the way circumnavigating the country by land. We do visit the Mivat nature baths on that, which is kind of like the Blue Lagoon, but it's in the north of the country. And so we do have that on that itinerary. But the Blue Lagoon and Sky Lagoon, they're both really easy to arrange from Reykjavik. So for people who are interested in adding that on, it is a lovely thing to do. It's really simple to add that to an additional day on the front or the back of your trip. Certainly the Blue Lagoon, they even have offerings where you can make a booking direct with them. They'll pick you up from the airport, they'll take you to the Blue Lagoon, they'll drop you off in Reykjavik afterwards. It can be a really good way to arrive in the country and start to recuperate from jet lag and see what it's all about in Iceland. So yeah, we don't include it on the tour because it is easy to do, and you can include an extra day on your personal travel plans to make that happen.
Great, thanks. So relatively speaking, Iceland is a newer landmass, I would say. Are there examples of new flora or fauna being discovered or being established for the first time?
Yeah, do you want me to grab that one, Boga?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the ecology in Iceland, I think it's really exciting because it is young. And the short answer to the question is yes, there are examples of species that they're either not established and show up sometimes, species that decide suddenly that they're going to migrate to Iceland and nest there throughout the summer, species that used to do that and then don't do it anymore for a number of reasons. So it is evolving all of the time. Some examples I can think of is there's no mosquitoes in Iceland. However, mosquitoes are recorded close to the airport every year because they do arrive with people mostly traveling over to Iceland. Throughout the winter in Iceland, the temperature can fluctuate quite a lot, and so nesting, the reproductive cycle of the mosquito is disrupted. They tend to hatch much too early in a warm spell, and then they will die when winter comes back. So that's why they're not established there, but they do come and go from the region of the airport. Now, a few years ago, there was a sand fly that arrived in Iceland, and it caused a bit of shock and horror, actually, because it's a biting insect, and there's not so many of those in Iceland. But now that's established in a couple of different spots, and there's ongoing studies for how other species respond to that, and they're kind of a natural cycle that's in play. There's also introductions that have happened by people. We talk a lot about the Alaskan lupin, which was introduced for soil erosion control and has become something of a double-edged sword in that it tends to overtake the native vegetation, but it does do a good job of fixing nitrogen and protecting the soil. So there's two sides to that story. So I say that in short, that's a question that we do witness, talk about, explore quite a lot on any visit to Iceland, because it's a really interesting part of being in a country with a young ecology.
Great. Well, thank you for that answer. That was terrific. So one last question for you two. If I'm coming to Iceland, what is one thing that you are excited to show me or have me experience?
Yeah, if I speak for myself, that is of course because you mentioned Blue Lagoon and the Sky Lagoon, for instance. That is to try one of our public swimming pools, because it's a very, very rich culture in Iceland is swimming pools, hot springs, the little, lagoons and etc. And of course we will visit one in Húsafell, the canyon bath, Skiljaböðin. But it's like, this is something I really always advise people that come over. And regarding food, of course, it's the fish. It's so fresh. Talking about the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, we just talk about my Breiðafjörður Bay, etc. So regarding food, fish, lamb meat, and then the swimming pools or the lagoons, Sky Lagoon. Over to you, Heather.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's easy. It's the Highlands.
Yeah.
In general.
Yes. Yes, of course. The Highlands are really, it's so charming, it's so different. It's something, you step into something magical, wonder when you are in the Highlands.
Great. Well, thank you guys both so much for sharing that with us. Unfortunately, that is going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for any closing comments you may have for us.
All right, thank you so much, Robert, and thanks everybody for joining us today. I hope you've learned something, got a bit excited about Iceland, and maybe we'll get to see you one day over in Iceland itself.
Yeah, same here. Wanted to thank you so much for listening and for the questions, and look forward to see you in Iceland and in my home country. And in Iceland we say takk, thank you. That means takk.
Heather, Boga, thank you both so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. So if you're like me and you're interested in traveling with NatHab to Iceland, please give us a call at 800-543-8917, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.